right. Thank you so much for keeping it Citizen TV Kenya. In case you're just joining us, don't worry, you're just in time for the conversations we had lined up for you this morning. And on the first part of the interviews, we want to talk about the cyberspace, the opportunities that it presents and the threats that also come with it. What you need to know, what should concern you, and how you can be able to stay safe even in this era that the digital revolution has taken over. Our country actually has witnessed a surge in internet usage and acquisition of smartphones, coupled with the expanded connectivity of internet across the country. But questions arise as to whether the populace is empowered enough on how to utilize this ICT infrastructure and how much they should share. What is it that they need to know in as far as, utilizing the opportunities that come with this is concerned? And I want to break this down, coming in the wake of just recently, we saw the long queues in different strategic places across the country as Kenyans lined up to have their iris scanned for what is called, just earning tokens. And of course, we'll be talking about the WorldCoin just as a snippet to get us into the entry point of this discussion. But allow me before that to introduce the panel that I'm having this morning on Daybreak. I'll begin with the young man on my far right. His name is Cyril Chege. He's the co-founder of Chapter Global, and a lot of interesting things you're doing to empower young people. We'll be discussing that in just a bit. Thank you for creating time for us. And then we have Brensil Kaimba. Brensil is a cybersecurity manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Thank you for creating time as well. And we have this morning Abdullahi Sheikh, the CEO of Convergence. Thank you also for creating time. On Zoom, we are joined by Al Kag, the Executive Director of Open Institute. Al, good morning, and thank you for creating time for us. He's joining us from Malindi. Thank you, Al. Can you hear us this morning?
I hear you just fine.
All right. Maybe just to begin with you, Al, we were just having this conversation about just a few days ago. You saw the long queues, and even it was a part of the trending stories on social media and even on the mainstream media about Kenyans lining up to sign up for the WorldCoin. I hear millions have already signed up for this, and for the recent, I would call it a drive, about 7,000 of them are signed up. I mean, looking at the queues and the issues that emerged about, this company and whether it was registered in our country, what concerns you, and even what does it tell us about our society?
A couple of things concern me very gravely. Number one is that the process of collecting irises is a serious invasion of personal privacy. And what concerns me is that most people don't seem to understand what that means for them. What concerns me also is the fact that, if I'm to be frank, the cryptocurrency in this case is a diversion. It's not the main story. It is an incentive that is given to people who are poor, who need money for unga, and therefore will run for whatever it takes for them to do it. So they'll go and they'll scan themselves. But really, if you put the Bitcoin aside, if you put the WorldCoin aside and step that to one side, you then realize that this is actually an exercise in collecting sensitive personal data at a very large scale. Now, when you ask yourself who is collecting that data at such a large scale, it is a private company. And that's a very serious thing, because a private company then can do anything with it. If you ask yourself, in addition to that, have they disclosed, or do the people who are providing this data, who are allowing themselves to be scanned, do they truly understand what it is that they are doing? It is clear that they are not. We've had the spot check conversation with people who scanned themselves, and many of them just had the money in their mind. They did not know what the impact of scanning the iris is. They do not know what impact having somebody else from another country have your sensitive personal data is. They don't even understand what could be used for this iris. So for them, it is iris for money, and that's a very, very serious thing. The final thing that concerns me really seriously is the fact that this company has come into the country, has collected, is extracting this data from our people. And there is no, we're not being very thorough in our sort of regulation of it. I'm happy, though, that the government was very quick to stop them. We are the first country to stop them in the world. And I think it's going to be very important that as we go through the process, as investigations continue, that until there is proper informed consent, things like this are not allowed to continue.
Thank you, Al. And just coming to you, Abdullahi, just to break it down for us, because there seems to be a lack of awareness on how this actually works. Kenyans went there thinking they were going to get cash. They were going to get money at the end of the day. But just to explain the basics about how cryptocurrency works, what would you tell us about, the expectations that Kenyans had and whether that was an informed expectation?
Thank you. So cryptocurrency uses a technology called blockchain. But as my colleague have said, it's just a diversion. The whole token thing is a diversion. It is a company that is preparing itself to be the main host of, biometric data globally, and use that to differentiate themselves for competitive advantage in the future. The problem is more social than technological. The hunger requirement is there. People are hungry. They want, and it's not just a Kenyan problem. Anybody who's offered free money will go for it, even in the developed world. I think the fact that we're the first one to stop, as my colleague also mentioned, is commendable. What I think the government needs to do, and even the private sector needs to help with, is more awareness, more sensitization to the public, and specifically building what we call cyber hygiene across our country. We are one of the most digitalized nations, and at the pace at which it's going now, specifically with this current administration, the pace will be even faster. Meaning that not just the people who take care of the data themselves, but the public that consume the data needs also to be sensitized. So what needs to be done is more public awareness.
More public awareness. And just coming to you, Brensil, in the cyberspace, it's something that we cannot run away from. It's already a reality that we are living today. As an expert in that field, looking at how Kenyans have embraced it and how Kenyans are utilizing it, the lack of even concern on how much we share. That day you saw people going to queue to have their iris scanned. This, from my understanding of the basics, this is like the identifier that I have that nobody else in the world has. Yeah. So you can imagine how critical it is for me to go and expose it to somebody that I don't even know. I mean, just tell us a bit about what mess this could, take us to.
Okay, maybe perhaps I would start by looking at it because I'm also a technology enthusiast. Yeah. So from a technology enthusiast perspective, I think what the possibilities that the technology itself presents is a lot. We don't yet have the use cases in Kenya, but you see anything that would need proof of personhood. So that's the whole concept of WorldCoin or what they're trying to achieve. Recently, we've been facing a lot of issues around fake profiles on social media. When you have a lot of likes, you don't know if these are true people or these are fake people. There are fake videos that are generated by AI. So at the heart of it, I do understand what that technology is trying to fix, that you can be able to prove that these are people, proof of people. But at the same time, because again, technology moves so fast as compared to regulation and awareness, that's where the gap that the two presenters have actually brought up. And as a cybersecurity professional, I think there are quite a number of risks that come to mind. Of course, the first one being privacy. The privacy risks, like your data, your digital footprint is out out there, and it can be used, it can be stolen. Normally when people steal from digital platforms, they ask you to pay in ransom in cryptocurrency. So that could be one of the channels. The other one is basically we don't know how secure this information is going to be stored, what security practices have been put, and at a national level, then that brings a bigger issue. But also for just the people who are involved in this process, what happens when you want to remove your iris from this platform? What other concerns can you have? Because these are automated systems. It could be used to make automated decisions maybe in future. So there are certain risks that we have to think about before we fully adopt as individuals. Yeah.
And I know that is the ocean that you swim, Cyril.
Yes.
The space of data and its sensitivity. It's one thing for me to give details about where I stay and, you know, my contact and everything, but it's another for me to just have my iris scanned. That is like giving myself to this system. Talk to us about, they say data is the new oil, data is the new gold, but do we know that as a society?
For sure. I think what I'd say is definitely data is the new oil. You want to extract as much insights as possible as a company to be able to at least optimize your profit, at times optimize the value you give your customers. It does help us a lot. Good example, right now when you use Uber, you can easily know at exactly what time you'll arrive at a place, pretty much because of the data collected because of other people using roads at any given front. When you talk about the WorldCoin issue, I think as we talk about data collection and its value, we also need to understand the whole idea of privacy and how companies that collect this data need to be regulated to a particular front to be able to protect individuals who most of the time don't know what's beneath this sort of data. We all use phones today. The amounts of data we share each and every single second is significant. None of us really have that sort of sensitization as to how much we're sharing in that particular front. So when it comes down to situations such as the WorldCoin here, I know there'll be experts who can read some of these white papers, understand how the underlying technology works, to understand what they're going to do with irises, to understand what's the protocol or regulations for if I wanted to leave that particular system. But at the end of the day, we've seen this blockchain industry for a while. 2017, we had really, really legitimate players, but you also had foul players as well. And at times, bringing in regulation is very key to be able to at least bring down what could be foul players in this sort of scenario. So I can't really term WorldCoin as a foul player or legitimate yet in that particular front. You have to really go down to the details in that front, but definitely you need to protect your citizens first, and taking a step to regulate is very, very essential as we start vetting what exactly is the value, right? And how exactly will these people be protected, particularly that you're taking one of, this is like your fingerprint, right, in regards to your identity. So it's very key to add a regulation layer, but let's not stifle innovation, right, with high regulation. How can we still present this sort of thing, have regulation for you to allow to vet these companies in regards to the value they offer and how well they protect the consumers?
I was also looking, I know you have something to add.
Yes.
Let me,
so you just mentioned the iris being unique, and this whole proof of personhood in the context of WorldCoin. Think about the scenario where this concept of permanency, that your iris is permanent, it just belongs to Safin. Then the speed of evolution of technology. So combining those two can be very, very, very dangerous. Right now, you need to present yourself so that you authenticate yourself through your iris. But when technology goes to the point where you really don't need to present yourself, your natural personal identification is somewhere accessible to an AI that can be unethically be used. So a point will come now, because the technology requires an access physical presentation of your iris. I can assure you, give it maybe 10 years, that requirement might not need to be there, and your iris is available, and if you're using your iris to get access to banking or healthcare, then that information is in someone else's hands, and you have no way to retrieve it back to your eye, if you may say that.
Look at that.
So that combining the permanency of the iris and the evolution of technology, that is potent danger.
Because you can change your contact details. You can change your phone
Absolutely.
number. You can change the physical address where you stay. You can change so many things about what identifies you. And Al, I want you to weigh in on this. Did Kenyans know what they were signing up to? Because one of the justifications was the fact that there was consent. There was consent. It was a mutual agreement between those people who were signing up for this and the company itself. But if you look at even the terms and conditions, the fact that you cannot sue the company, the only path that you can explore is the arbitration path in case you have any concerns. You know, terms and conditions also say that you cannot, if your tokens are stolen, they cannot be refunded. That's just that. Do you think Kenyans knew what they were signing up to?
I can confirm to you that majority of the Kenyans, in fact, maybe all of the Kenyans who were there, did not know what they were signing up to. I can confirm also that the concept of willing buyer, willing seller requires that I have the capacity to make a decision. I have the capacity to, I have an understanding of a fair amount to be able to make a decision, so that if something goes wrong, then I can be able to get recourse. Now, a number of problems with this. A, proof of personhood is a really interesting concept, but the people who have a social contract to be able to provide this proof of personhood is actually not a private company. It has to be a government. The simple reason why a proof of personhood should remain the preserve of government is simply because a government has a social contract to be able to protect people's data, and they can be held accountable for it. A personal company such as WorldCoin, actually it is not WorldCoin, it is Tools for Humanity that people are signing a contract with, does not have such an obligation to make sure that they provide security for that data, to make sure that nothing can go wrong with it. If you check online, you will actually find that just not very long ago, some of their data was hacked. Now, if some of their data is hacked and it is stolen, if it is with government, we can hold them accountable. Who are we holding accountable? A company in Germany, or the company in the Cayman Islands, or who is it that we're dealing with? WorldCoin as a brand is actually also a misnomer, because of the fact that the WorldCoin Foundation that was registered in the Cayman Islands is not the one that people are signing a contract with. People are actually signing a contract with Tools for Humanity, which is a private business. Now, when a private business has access to your data in that way, you have no recourse. A lot of these people were given a document to sign within 30 seconds. If you look at those terms and conditions, nobody had a chance to ask any questions. There was no concept of informed consent. That document was a 4,000-word document. Mm-hmm. In what word do you have even the best lawyer in the world? In what world could they be able to understand a 4,000-word document within minutes? It's of course not possible. Mm-hmm. And so there are serious problems with how this WorldCoin thing was done. And it is important for us to understand that whereas we do not want to stifle innovation, and going into the AI world, we are going to need to do some very bold, audacious moves. But it is important that we do them transparently. It is important that the principles of fairness are upheld, and it is important that locus is actually focused on a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Al. And just to come to you, Brensil, Al earlier talked about the fact that at least we among the countries, actually, if not the only country that has stopped WorldCoin, at least the government cracked the whip on this. But I'm questioning the timing of it. That was like a few days after Kenyans had already, even 1,000 is a lot if you have 1,000 people exposing their iris to a company that the government confirmed is not even registered in our country. That's something that should concern us. Talk to me about whether this is also something that concerns you as an expert in this area, the timing that the government came in, and even the ability of the government to protect its citizenry under circumstances such as this, because we are in a digital revolution, and this is not the only time we are going to experience something such as this will come. Are we ready for that?
Okay, maybe I will approach it from the perspective of, do we have, or have I seen processes in place or laws that would be able to help us identify such things? So from my perspective, I would say yes. So because when I look at the Data Protection Act, specifically the section where it says processes that present high risks to data subjects. And one of those include processing of biometric data, processing of data in large scale. There's also a requirement when you're processing specific types of data for you to have a data center here in Kenya, or to be specifically registered or have offices here in Kenya. So when you look at the framework that we've already established just at Data Protection Act, we already have a framework that can be able to help us to curb such. And I think that's why the Data Protection Commissioner came in strongly on this particular matter.
But at what time? Because this company is not registered. But still, like you say, the Data Act actually demands that should happen, that a company that is collecting data should be registered. So who dropped the ball?
That's an interesting question. So maybe perhaps I can respond to it. Just from like a professional perspective, I think because when I look at where we were before, where we did not have the Act, we did not have the Cyber Crimes and Computer Misuse Act, you'd see such situation would take a lot of time to even detect or even have a way of knowing what to do about it. So we've come to a place where we know what needs to be done. We already know where we need to report. I think that's a lot of progress. We might not be there 100%, whereby if something happens today, it's handled and it's taken to court or reported immediately. But I can say we've come a long way, where we even have a process, we have a portal, we know who to report to, we know what needs to be done, we know how much fine they need to do. They know what they need to do. So at least the accountability part is already there. Yeah. All
right. I want us to continue having... Al, you have something to add?
I would like to jump in here and say that in terms of who dropped the ball, there are two parts of that story. One, I think I will speak up for the government on this one in terms of when they actually stopped this, because the Data Protection Commission and even the ministry don't have a responsibility to police essentially how data is collected. But they do have a responsibility to make sure that we are within the law. So essentially, you go and you register with the Data Protection Commissioner, you make sure that you follow the guidelines, and you proceed with your business, no problems, no questions asked there, no problem. But in this particular case, I noticed that the Data Protection Commissioner stopped, gave them a seize order on the 30th of May, I think it was, told them in advance of them starting to collect this data, while they were still testing out their systems, not to collect this data and the iris data, not to collect sensitive personal data in that way until there's a clear understanding of what it is that they're doing and whatever it is. And this company, in defiance, actually went ahead and did this, and that is why Kenya had the locus to stop them when they did. Many other countries have concerns about this. I'm talking about Spain, I'm talking about the UK, I'm talking about countries in South America. Many of them have a problem with this, but none of them have actually stepped up to the plate of actually stopping the data collection before it goes too far. In America, this company is not allowed to collect this data, and in fact, even in the terms and conditions, it says that if you're a US citizen, you are not allowed to scan your iris. You ask yourself, why is this the case? It is because of the fact that this is an extractive system that is actually trying to loot our people in the same way that the others did. However, I do think that the due diligence should have been done before this company was allowed to begin. And I think there we can hold the government accountable for not having done enough to check them out, to ask the right questions, to make sure that before the company starts operating, then we have a clear sense. But in terms of them stopping them, I think we can give kudos to the government for being ahead of the curve on that one.
All right, Al, thank you for that. At least, pointing out that we should give credit where it's due. At least we are among the countries that put a stop to it, despite the fact that it's happening elsewhere and it has not been stopped, but shows as to how much the government can be able to do to protect its citizenry. So for now, that process has been halted and investigations continue to that particular effect. We'll be talking about more that comes. Remember, just a few days before that, there were allegations of hacking into the systems of the government. And of course, also just talking about the cyberspace in general, the opportunities that come with it and the risks for you as a user to be able to know how to stay safe in this digital revolution. Coming up after the break, do stay with us. This is Daybreak.